Many people think of depression either as a transient emotion, you had a bad day, or they think of it as, well, a pessimistic person, okay? But we think of it as a clinical condition in this fairly severe form for a variety of reasons. One is that it is a change from the way the person usually is, that they recognize often, but particularly those close to them would recognize that this is not their normal personality.
She looks really, really happy here. Libby is a really photogenic kid. Is she just smiling for the camera, or was she really a happy kid?
She was happy, yeah. Not smiling all the time, but found it easy to smile.
She was very talented in a lot of areas, very, very talented swimmer. I don't think she ever realized quite how talented she was.
Some of the swimmers she used to regularly beat ended up making it into the Olympics eventually.
And to compete at the level she competed, you had to have a lot of drive yourself. You wanted to win, and she did have that drive, that dedication. And so this was taken in June of 2012, just 3 months before she made the very serious suicide attempt. On September 18th, 2012, my daughter, Libby, at age 36, made a serious attempt to take her life. For 4 months, she was kept alive by a ventilator as her family and friends watched and waited and prayed for a miracle. But on January 14th, 2013, she succumbed to her injuries and passed away. We couldn't save Libby, but we hope her story might save others.
I think when she was in high school is probably when I first saw signs of depression. In middle school, even though she was not quite the social butterfly that I was, she still had a really good, solid group of friends. When she got to high school, I could see a lot of that changed. She wanted even more and more time by herself. She couldn't really find anything to make her happy. You know, it became very early on at that age, and then continued. A lot of what she would say is, well, I would be happy if, and I will be happy when. And those ifs and those whens would happen, and she still wasn't happy.
What we saw was, I think, more and more pulling away, more isolation. Perhaps the most noticeable thing about depression is she lost the ability to enjoy things she used to enjoy. Things that she used to think were funny, she couldn't laugh at them anymore. So there was a sense that that whole ability to enjoy life had just been sucked out of her.
One of the things I've always said about depression is the idea that you're drowning, and the medicine doesn't get you to the side. The medicine only brings you to the surface. It allows you to pull yourself to the side. And I think there were times, even with the medicine, that she wasn't able to do that based on what might be going on in her life.
The patients who have clinical depression would say that they feel perpetually anxious, sometimes not even able to say what they're anxious about, or that they feel apathetic, uncaring, unmotivated, or that they feel literally numb, that they literally can't feel anything.
Depression is more common than a lot of people realize. It affects people from all walks of life, people of all ages, racial and ethnic backgrounds, social and economic backgrounds, and it's increased over time. I think as a society, as well as medical professionals, we need to make it okay to talk about mental illness just the way we talk about physical illness.
If you have a death in the family and someone dies from cancer, you know, you talk about the fact that person died from cancer and you look into what you can do. You know, there's still I think a lot of times kind of a hush-hush when someone dies of suicide. It doesn't create the open dialogue, I think, that other disorders do.
There's some embarrassment in being depressed, and that you can look logically that life is good and that you have all of those things or people in your life that you want to have, and yet for some reason you're still not happy. And then it becomes a cycle, and then you feel worse, and then it's even harder and harder to get out of.
The truth is that being depressed is part of the human condition, and if we look back through history, there were many people of faith who went through dark times, and so, you know, it's okay, even if you're a person of faith, to be depressed and to reach out for help, and that help comes in many forms, including medical treatment.
She really wanted to live life to the fullest, and yet she just could not actually do it. She had that idea. She wanted to be the best mother, you can tell by her writings. She wanted to be actively involved in things, and yet her actions never showed that.
Most important thing that for me is for people to understand, whether it's the person themselves or their loved ones, to understand that these states are very treatable, and that the good news is that they do not tend to last forever.
As a parent, you want to protect your child, certainly, at the very least. Keep them safe and provide them with all the resources they need to have a good life. And part of adjusting to parenthood as they get older is you lose much of that ability, much of that influence. And that really happened with Libby.
We hear a lot about depression in young people and in older people. And we don't hear as much about depression in people who are in midlife. So, you know, people who are in their 40s are often raising families. They have young children and or teenagers to worry about, as well as parents who are older. They have jobs, a lot of responsibility at work. Sometimes, you know, they're caring for lots of people other than themselves, and their friends tend to be very busy and not always available either. So I think it can be a particularly hard time of life to actually like reach out and get help for depression.
One of the things that family and friends often feel is if you could just give them enough love, that would be enough.
If it were just a matter of, you know, family support and things like that, you know, she would have been better a long time ago.
I think love and that sort of emotional support is great. I think it's needed, but if they're really seriously depressed, it's not going to be enough. This is an illness that really needs professional care.
Medications are much more, in moderately severe to severe depressions, are much more effective than the placebo pill, okay? But they work even better if the patient is in a counseling relationship with somebody they trust. I've been excited to be a depression doctor, if you will, for many, many years. And because even when I was a student, I started to see that these patients get better. And the remarkable thing to me is that when they get better, they are as talented and as productive and as happy as anybody I've ever met.
It's hard to take something that's so horrific and so horrible and turn something positive. I thought really maybe the best thing is to get out there and get people talking.
I'm doing this video because I don't want other people to suffer the same fate that my sister did. You change one person's life, you save one person's life, and you've done something right.
Memorial service, more than 300 people attended at the church. And at the reception afterwards, so many people came up to me or to other family members and said, "We're so glad that you spoke openly about depression. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about it in church, we need to talk about it at work, we need to talk about it in our homes, we need to talk about it in our schools."
My hope would be that my children will grow up in a world that's more open, because even though my parents were open to letting us talk about any problems or issues that we had, there was still that idea of what society will think and what what friends will think and what extended family might think. I hope that people can realize that no matter if you think you're being difficult for your family or anything, would still rather have you. I would rather have my sister in any condition in any way than not. And I think that, or I hope that people will realize that suicide is not the option, that there are so many other options. And even if it feels like the only option, just in any way to think about, those that are around you and that they do love you, even if things are hard.